sometimes questions come up later, so there it is. Again, one more time, thank you. And we're going to move on to our next section. Just remember that we are in the accessibility scope. So we find this relevant that we're going to bring out now, which is a post from Long for Wisdom, and it was about the DAO redundant storage and IPFS. So what's happening here? It's basically there is this problem, and in the document it mentions that documentation, or what Long for Wisdom mentioned, is that documentation at Maker needs a responsible stakeholder. So the state of the project's documentation, let's say it's not bad, it's not terrible, but the problem is that it's never fully up to date, it's never updated, and this problem continues for different documentations, not just one specific. I'm going to share also the link of this post so you can see them. One thing that he mentions is that he finds that Gitbook it's highly effective and it's user friendly for documentation. And so what they suggest is to maintain it and addressing centralization concerns by mirroring content on decentralized protocols rather than replacing Gitbook entirely. And so we are going to focus on actually this part of the post, which is basically about the DAO redundant storage and IPFS. Long for Wisdom, and I'm going to also mention here Hernando AGF, which is the dev from GetSmart. So they work on reducing MakerDAO's reliance on GitHub for storing relevant session documentation, and this by mirroring it on IPFS. So let me share with you the link. There was an update on this. We're bringing this up. And so data to be stored, we have both text, polling executive, documentation, delegate information. And this is the solution. Interplanetary file systems, so files are stored and accessed directly between individuals' nodes and not from a central server. And how we ensure that the data will remain pinned on an appropriate amount of IPFS. So this is what is the current challenge. Something else that they mentioned here is that they developed a solution using GitGat workflow boots to mirror content to a backup repository. So ensuring redundancy by pinning data to multiple IPFS nodes. And so the plan is that ecosystem actors and subDAOs, they were expected to use their own third-party spinning services. This was a long-term plan to expand the solution to allow users to easily sync their local IPFS nodes with Maker document list. But in the post, it also it's mentioned, of course, that the project was not complete. And the proposal we're putting in here. And there was an update on this. Basically, the Powerhouse team has generated an IPNS link for users to bookmark, and they plan to regularly update this link with the latest content from the forums, making it a current directory for IPFS files. I don't know if anyone has any insights or comments on these. I'm going to check also. Okay. Something else that we want to bring up in here, it's as one of our recent posts that we mentioned, it's about we want also getting our ADs more involved with this. So with the weekly calls, we received documentation from Clocky and from Blue. So we're going to share also this part. So about this scope, um, something that Clocky points out, it's of, and I think we can all agree, it's the lack of clarity regarding the retroactive transparency for launch project fund allocation after the beta launch. Um, so there is considered to include details about the accessibility chat, which is another aspect as well, or specifying responsible individuals. Um, something that Clocky points out in his documentation, it's the importance of the accessibility chat as a safe learning space for newcomers to understand the system without complexities of governance politics. Also, is something very similar about this, about having documentation that it's basic, that are target to people that are starting learning about maker. It's also in Long for Wisdom's post. He mentioned that they were working on this, but of course we know that they're no longer active in maker anymore. So I think this it's something that involves everyone, about having documentation also to a specific target of people that are starting in maker ecosystem, having accessible in the forum. And so let's move on to, this is what Clockies point out. And when it comes to the relevant topics from last 5 weeks, well, he also mentions about the expansion of the launch project budget. This is the modification that Rund made. And the withdrawal of MKR from the launch project budget. I don't know if there's anything else that you would like to point out here that we haven't mentioned, Clocky. You can also type it on the chat. 3 million die, there was two. Can we please, can you share the link so we can have also updated the slide? Paper Imperium, thank you so much for being here. And I see also Clock is typing. So before moving on to Blue's comment from this scope, well, okay, you. And now let's move on to Blue. He points out about the concern raised by Porter Smith, which is the complexity of funding and nurturing diverse communities. And that this specific concern is not addressed in this in scope. There is something that I'm going to quote just because I don't want to have it my interpretation could be wrong, so I'm going to just quote it. And so I'm going to, it says, this is not addressing the scope, and it feels like its success is left to the winds of fate. So the suggestion that he put in here is to consider supporting and engaging community managers to address this concern effectively. So how can we do this? Because we have also kind of like suggestions, ideas, not proposals, but ideas. And so now we need more insights into these specific topics. Thank you so much, Clocky and Blues. I don't know if we have another document from our ADs that would like to share with us, or point out this is also the time that they to share with us. I give like a minute, and if not, okay, let's move on. There's not a slide about this, but I think that everyone is aware about Pedro, who is actually it's PB here, post So we're going to give a couple of minutes to Pedro and we have also Sebastian here. Thank you for being here, Sebastian. So these a couple of minutes are going to be for them to explain their insights and point of view, if they have questions about each other and something that they haven't already mentioned it. Well, this is going to be the time. Please take as much time as you need. And so now I'm going to give you the word, Pedro.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. First of all, Seb, thank you very much for coming. The first thing I want to highlight, and I must be intellectually honest, is that in response to my questions I made on the forum, your reaction was to come back to the AVC meeting to talk, which is very positive and speaks very well of you, so thank you. I would like to start this discussion by reading a short comment that was made today on Discord by Tobal, which I believe it reflects the overall framework of this discussion and also allows us to introduce the topic to those who haven't been following the forum or Discord in the recent days. So my quote, "The selling points of DAI over USDC, USDT, or others to me is that it is a similar operational and business setup, but with full on-chain transparency and governance. But this breaks down when the off-chain stuff becomes very opaque. So my strategic goal would be to make it as transparent as possible for governance. Because why hold DAI versus USDT if you think both have some unclear off-chain deals that will blow up? Maybe even preference to something like USDC or USDT then, because they don't have to go through long on-chain governance stuff to get something done. But in long term, I think that transparency wins out." So thank you very much for being here. My first question would be if you have any comments or reflection on this quote.
Thanks for having me on this call. I mean, we are always happy to come on calls as much as we can. So on your quote, I mean, we are sharing the same goal. And it's interesting because if you look at the last work that Stakers provided, I mean, there was a lot of concerns about Clydesdale being a black box and questions of FUD mainly. Where is the money? Maybe it's not here. So I've worked, and I mean, it wasn't done in one day. I mean, things take time. MakerDAO is not the easiest political environment to work with. So it took a few months, and I published, or Staker published, granular detail on all transactions made in the Signum bank account, and a dashboard showing day by day what is happening. So I think that's more transparency than USDT, USDC, or any stablecoin. And so that's, I think we are completely aligned. If you also look at what we posted on the forum this afternoon, and again, that's something I worked personally for the last 3 years. If you look at my original post a few years ago, I always present this vision that off-chain is bad and we should move off-chain. Obviously, there is the T-bills, for instance, will go on-chain at some point, but it will take time. So we need to have a token that we invest in. There is a price feed. It's like USDC. I mean, when we MakerDAO started to invest in USDC, there was a lot of FUD about good or bad. I don't judge. About, well, USDC is a real world asset, super risky, super shady. Now everyone is using USDC and no one cares anymore. So I think that's the path, and the path I think we are all agreeing. What we might disagree in some ways is how to get there. But I think if you look at all we've done, the Stakehouse team since 2020, I think we are one of the most transparent team that exists. And I don't take this statement lightly. I mean, we have people saying that we worked a lot to improve transparency in DeFi. I don't have the link here, but we can find them. So I understand that nothing is perfect. And to be honest, I would say that MakerDAO, to your statement, transparency is not very good. But it is what it is. And if we don't try to improve it, we are not going to make the end game in the sense of being transparent, as your statement implies, on which we all agree, I guess.
Yeah, I agree that we all want the same. We have the same goal, that is improving transparency. Also, I will go back to the post to the today's post of you that you mentioned earlier, because it's very interesting, and I think that if you want to comment on this later, it would be awesome. But a question I've been making to myself, and I couldn't find the exact answer in the forum. I've seen that in the MIP 113, it says that you have a facilitator budget, but I've seen that you said a couple of times that you are no longer facilitator. So I would like you to introduce Stakehouse Financial as if you were new, and please clearly outline the task that you're assigned as an ecosystem actor, please.
Yeah, so I'm maybe not the best person because I'm not following all the details of the endgame plan. If you want, I'm more. MakerDAO is complex. There is a complex governance system. I'm quite sure you are super aware of this one. We are kind of the experts. But at the same time, there is a lot of complexity. I mean, we should still go back to the point of we are managing, or the MakerDAO community is managing the life savings of $5 billion of people that trust MakerDAO to survive. And we need to strive, and there was more complicated eras where MakerDAO was losing money. So that's what a lot of stress for everyone, because if you lose money at some point, it's very bad. Depending of USDC and so on. So it's a lot of technical stuff to manage and a lot of stress already. So we cannot, no human is able to comprehend the whole complexity of MakerDAO as a whole, and I'm just a human. So I'm more on the technical stuff. So on this part for Stakehouse, the way I see it is really that we are an ecosystem actor, not a facilitator. I understand that in the MIP, we are with the facilitators, but if you look on the documents, it's clearly said that it's included as well non-facilitators. And we are ecosystem actors to provide, well, and I know paper and pen will say, well, we are not allowed to do financial advice. And financial advice is sense of accounting. We do a lot of reporting. We created the first financial statement for DAOs, really. Jan did a bit, but a bit differently. But yeah, we are known to provide a financial statement or protocol economics since the beginning. You have to remember that at the point, there was a protocol and no one knew how much was spent, how much revenue there was, and it was just a big mess. MakerBond is doing a great job as well. And we are also doing, so we weren't supposed to do real-world assets. And if you look at the history, you can see why it's a bit ironic. But we are managing real-world assets because the community decided to fire the real-world finance core unit, more or less. And there was no one to manage it. And we have this expertise. And we decide, well, I mean, if no one can do it, we will do our best to try to do it. And so that we did. It wasn't our goal at the beginning, and it was just, I mean, if no one wants to do it, we have to do it. And we have the expertise. So we started to take over the real-world assets that the previous team didn't do anything for the, well, since the previous facilitator of real-world assets was fired, which was myself. And so we had to start from scratch and take it from almost nowhere. So we tried to do our best, and obviously it's not easy to understand real-world assets. And sorry, I'm going somewhere, but I kind of forgot your answer, so maybe you can put me back on track. I don't want to waste the time of people.
No, it's definitely not a waste of time. So,
oh yeah, it was what was Stakehouse Finance. I think if you want to summarize Stakehouse Finance, is we are trying to do what your skill set is more profitable for MakerDAO. I mean, there's probably something more clear somewhere, but doing what is best for MakerDAO with your competency, I think that's what we should do as a moral statement.
Okay, thank you very much. That's clear. So going to the core of my forum post, where I stated that I believe that stakeholders are not receiving the easy digestible information that they need in order to make informed decisions. I believe that your financial reports are awesome. They are very good. But for instance, when we joined the DAO, we tried to start understanding how real world assets work and how MakerDAO was allocating resources. And it's true, it's really complex. This is evident. But I believe that maybe some kind of communication could be improved in order to make this complexity easier to understand to those who are not financial experts, technical experts, just simply stakeholders that want to make well-informed decisions. Do you believe there is an aspect on your reports that could be improved to reach this goal?
So I think financial information is come in many layers. And I think I'm trying, but failing obviously, to distill it in a very high-level strategic way. Back in the day, it's no longer the case with the new setup, but there was a governance call every week. Was it every week? Yeah, I think it was every week. So every month we presented the financials report and all the work we've done and took questions. To my memories, there was not many questions. And so the financial report is quite the same. It evolved. And it's getting a bit more complex because MakerDAO is becoming more complex. But it's evolving. And obviously, there is complexity. So you're right to ask, well, it's complex. I mean, at the same time, I would say you are managing the life savings of $5 billion. In which world wouldn't it be complex? I mean, I work for a financial institution. It's super, super complex. And most people, if TradFi, don't know what they are doing in the first place. And I couldn't compare on most of what they are doing anyway. If you work on the Solvency II, on Basel III, which is a regulatory framework for insurance and banks, 99% of people in banks don't know it. And 99.999% of people being clients of bank have no clue what is happening in the bank. So that's a very big challenge that we have as DAO because we want to onboard more stakeholders. And I think stakeholders should have simple KPIs. And that's something we are trying to spend quite some time at Steakhouse internally as well on thinking, well, we should simplify the framing. But when we simplify the framing, you are removing some important stuff. You try to keep the most important stuff, but you are removing some important stuff. And for me, really, and what I try to tell to community, and community on the other hand wants to do something else, is to abstract complexity and focus on what matters. And the business of MakerDAO is super simple. It's to make the maximum revenue, because revenue is good if you want to finance public goods. It's good if you want to survive, because you have expenses, so you need to make a lot of revenues. And being constrained by two constraints. One is to be solvent, to have more assets than liabilities, because if DAI is unbacked, you can have a run on a bank. And liquidity, because we don't have any contractual obligation to redeem DAI at $1, except at the emergency shutdown. But people want to have DAI at $1, be able to get $1 USDC. So those are the two constraints. And if you start top down, I mean, it's quite simple. Then you can decide, well, liquidity. And one question I ask many times to committee and usually never got an answer. I don't think there was any pool to define really what means to be DAI, to be liquid. Is it to always get $1 USDC? Is it to get $1 USDC, $1 GUSD, or $1 USDP? Or is it to, well, you get 0.999 USDC and that's a good peg? Because that's one of the most important parameters that governance can decide. And that's, quite simple. Do you want the peg to be 1 or is 0.999 good enough? You don't have to be a mathematician or a computer scientist to have an opinion on that. Now, what the community is asking usually is more, there is some issues or some things that makes the news of the day, and it's always changing, on real world asset. It's always real world asset for some reasons. For the last 3 years, it was always real world asset. Things can blow up somewhere else, no one cares. Real world assets are more interesting for people, which I completely understand why. And then they want to dig very deep on the topic. And then they are, yes, but on this line of the agreement that we signed, without understanding all the implications, what are the consequences of having this? Who decide to put this sentence? And you go in very technical details. You want one KPI. And just finding the definition of the KPI, and we can do the exercise, I mean, I'm quite happy with it, would take a few months and would not be super easy to find. So this is the question. Is it better to go top-down from strategic governance decisions, or going back to points of details of specific real-world asset deals? And that, I think, the way of we fail to explain, or maybe we are wrong, that's possible as well, to say, well, what is important at the governance level or at the stakeholder level is what really matters. As a DAO holder, I don't care if MakerDAO spend 1 million on something completely stupid, or lose 1 million in a real-world asset. What I care, though, is MakerDAO still profitable, and is MakerDAO still backing my DAIs? And can I exit DAI for USDC or another stablecoin one-to-one? That's what matters. And those small details of micromanagement in some ways are a bit less important. And getting focused, and I completely understand that you have focus on one pop-up every day. Just like on Twitter, if you go on crypto Twitter, every day it's a different topic. And the next week, everyone forgot about the topic of the last week. But really, what is important, in my view at least, is to protect the holder. And then, and only after, it's to make Maker a wealthy protocol. So it can grow and provide more services to more people around the globe. I don't know if it's clear on this part.
Yes, thank you for your complete answer. I believe that I agree with you that it's really important, or that your main task is to make Maker profitable, and that's perfect. And I agree that should be it is your main job. But I believe that we need effective communication for the DAO to understand what is going on, because it's not always about, okay, these guys are performing the task in an excellent way. We have to trust that you are doing it in the perfect way, or that you are taking care of the assets, while not understanding why sometimes numbers are as they are, or maybe something is being debated in the forum, and then a poll is requested without the sufficient information to make a decision. I in my post I clearly stated that I am not mistrusting you or are saying that you are doing things wrong, but we have a problem of communication, of information flow. So I don't know, for instance, the reports. So you have the DAI loan balance, the debt ceiling, monthly and yearly stability fees paid to the DAO, but maybe they could have also another kind of information. So I don't know, which is the stability fee, which is the actual fee being paid, why is that different from one to another, what expectation was one fee and why is another arriving to the DAO, what is if there is some unrealized or retained money, and why is that happening, or when is that money expected to come to the DAO, like some details that in the end always it was proven that it's just lack of communication, or it's not a problem of I am lying about the numbers. It's a problem that we cannot know effectively which the numbers are or which the reasons behind the numbers are. So I know that you think, or you think that this task is hard and it's a waste, in some sense, a waste of time. But all this sort of drama, I don't want to take it there, or this questioning would not be here if that kind of information was easily provided. I know, maybe you think that you shouldn't be the guys doing that job. Maybe you think that the DAO should hire someone else to do the effective communication and work beside you to do it. Maybe we should know that. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. So So I agree. I mean, I'm more for full transparency usually, and that's what we do at Stakehouse. So usually, if you look at all the queries are public, and for instance, we publish the ledger of Clydesdale, and we are the first one. And now we're getting the feedback that, oh, you are not transparent. I mean, we changed the solution from no ledger to one ledger with all the transactions that we are allowed to publish. And I would frame it differently. If you look at all the agreements of real-world assets, we are not managing any money. We don't have control of any money. We don't have access to most of the information neither. And that was decided by the DAO when they created, onboarded the real-world assets. So that was decided by governance. Cannot change it. And usually there is a reporting already. And so it's, I think, a bit unfair to say, well, you're not reporting stuff. Yeah, but we don't have the information to start with. And what we are doing is to go beyond. If you look, and obviously there is a lot of politics as well, so we cannot, and I'm not throwing data at anyone, but if you want to open we are limited by what you can do. And that's kind of, in some ways, the DAO that's limiting us. For instance, HVB, we didn't have access to the people managing HVB. So it took us a few months just to get access to what we have today. There was a report, but it was completely impossible for human beings to understand. And I mean, even at Stakehouse, we didn't follow the money. And because I was missing some information, to get this information, it was a few months of negotiation. Because from the point of view of the trust managing HVB, we are no one. They have no reason to speak to us. So you need to create relationship and so on. So it takes time. So if you look carefully, so I understand that you want more, but you are asking it from Stakehouse, which is not mandated to do it and doesn't have the capacity to do it. And we still try to do it the best we can. Maybe that's the issue. If we didn't do nothing and say, well, it's not a job, see with the other guy, maybe that would be better for Stakehouse. And now you want to defend us because we tried to do something that wasn't in our mandate.
Okay, that's a fair point. If you can't do it because you don't have access to the information, I think that you're right. You simply can't do it. Would you give an advice to the DAO on how to address this issue? I know you don't have the access to the information, but maybe what can be done?
So what I understand still from working for 3 years at MakerDAO, I completely understand that people that don't want to share information because any information will be used against you. That's the basic rule. And you pointed it correctly. You use many of my quotes against me in the forum post. So that's not an issue for me, but it shows a cultural problem. If you don't let people to explain, oh yeah, there was an issue, that's life, it happens, and you're always going after them, or they say, well, there was a delay in a bank transfer. And then aggressively people come, wait, but you should follow it. Oh, we sold the T-bill, it took, 3 weeks to move. But you should move it faster. It's super low, performance is not there, you suck. More or less, that's what community is saying sometimes. Well, that's not a good, healthy environment. That's not how we progress as a community, I would say. And maybe if I was community, I would say exactly the same thing, for sure. But the PvP environment is not helping for people to provide more information because it's always against them. If you look Stakehouse, if you look on the forum, the Stakehouse team is the one that was threatened to be fired and fired the most. And it's also the one, if you look at Discord, that was the more inclined to answer, that provide the more information, the more statement about what we did. This kind of correlation isn't healthy in my
view. I didn't mean by at any moment wanted to imply or mean that you should get fired or off-boarded. that's out of the table.
Well, defunded mean fired.
Again, please.
You say that we shouldn't be paid, which is kind of the same thing. I think.
No. I was proposing that an option to make the ecosystem actor give the information that is needed to all the stakeholders to understand the data could be to cut off payments. I just posted a request for comments. That was the whole point, to make ideas flow through the forum. That I believe is the perfect place to discuss these kinds of topics. I didn't try to imply that you should be fired. That was not my goal, and it's not my goal.
Yes, but the sentiment is, and the experience of MakerDAO is that way. And
well,
that's because, I mean, I don't know how long have you been working at MakerDAO or collaborating with MakerDAO, but it's an highly political environment. And if you threat someone to get defunded, it's because you want it to be defunded. And so you're just laying keys to get to the situation.
Well,
and that's the name of the game. It's not against you.
I didn't intend to.
If you look at other people, what their behavior is, they have a target, they have a goal, but they are just playing the long term. And so when someone is asking the same question over and over, and it's working, it's to spread a narrative. I mean, that's political 101.
I am not going to comment on narratives, or it's just things that I've been seeing in forum where delegates don't get the answers. So I want to know how to make those answers appear, because they need to make or to take informed decisions, and they are not always experts on financial aspects, and they need to rely on a professional to get those answers. And when they don't get them, how they are voting to decide if a real world asset has to reduce the debt ceiling, or to move, for instance, the ETF to T-bills, how do they decide if they don't have the full information? So that was my point.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point. How did they decide?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Stackhouse didn't provide didn't issue the proposal. Stackhouse is not the scope facilitator, so doesn't have any accountability or responsibility of putting the poll on the vote, and we are not informed, and people are still voting on it. And I think the vote was an only person to move it. So how is it the case that Stackhouse is involved in this transaction?
Okay, you are the expert. Who do you think who would you advise the stakeholders to rely on when they need extra information?
Well, you can ask the person. You can ask the person proposing the pool. Why do you propose it? To start with, I don't know if it was done. I mean, I wasn't following this one. It wasn't a topic of my interest. If you want information on this one, you can tag Stackhouse. Which again, I mean, if we are doing analysis on everything, we will not move forward. And I mean, because we can have a DOS attack on our capacity to work. That's another issue that we need to face, is that we have a bandwidth and we have a lot of work to do. And if we cannot make the work we are paid for, getting results, and then community can say, well, you're not getting any result. And I think we are already super late on plenty of stuff because, there's just so many stuff to be done. And you have a scope facilitator. Did you try to reach the scope facilitator, which decide to put the poll on the vote, and ask them why they did?
Okay, will do. Thank you very much. So
and you have the advisor as well of the scope, because we are not advisor of the scope neither.
Okay, thank you very much. So my last question would be about the post up of today. Do you want to make any comment or explain about the tokenized tables? It's very cool, and I think Maybe you want to take the time to explain it.
Yeah, sure. As we discussed at the beginning, off-chain is bad. I'm simplifying, but off-chain is bad. It's complex. People want to have more information. And I think what we learned with the stablecoins is that they are quite good at showing information. I mean, I wouldn't trust them too much, but in some ways, they are still better than. No, sorry. Let's reframe. Just like the end game, separating responsibilities and make a core smaller is a good thing. That I fully agree. And if you can put on the market to provide tokenized T-bills, well, it's probably better than deciding one day, oh, we can do tokenized T-bills. Let's do it. Let's put a trust in BVI and Cayman. Let's hire Sinum. Let's put all the agreements on the forum so everyone can read them. That would not. That, as you can see, I don't know how many people here read all the agreements, but for your sanity, I hope not too many people. I guess Kyonga read them all, and so on. But most people don't have time for that, and shouldn't, because you cannot understand. It's madness. So one solution is to use third parties, and the market, the free market, is usually helping us decide who is the best counterparty, because they get more TVL, which actually doesn't work because USDT is the best stablecoin in this metric. But anyway, you can assume that the market will find what are the good counterparties, and you can allocate to them. And then you have a token representing a position, and you have a price feed. And for instance, we discussed on the chat about IB01. So you have IB01, which is an ETF of 0 to 1 year T-bills issued by iShares, which is BlackRock, which is quite a good proxy for T-bills. This one you can track the price everywhere on internet. You tap IB01 market cap on Google, and you will find the price. And so there is no question, what is the price? What is the performance? There is here all to see. And that was why I was quite bullish on starting with IB01 and IBTA as a first investment from a long time. And I think first time I proposed this solution was in November 2021, so a few years ago. But we need an off-chain structure, we need trustees. I set up some offshore entities for that, or helped to set them up. And it's quite a lot of complexity. You need lawyers, you need the corporate servicer, let's say trustees. And when you want something to change, you need the DAO resolution, which takes ages because you need first the DAO resolution to be crafted. Then you need the legal firm to review it because the director of the trust, or let's say the trustee, don't want to take any risk because you have a fiduciary duty. That takes a few weeks. And then there are some changes to be made. You need another lawyer to analyze whatever impact there can be in the US and so on. So it's super complicated. It's taking a long time. I mean, on HVB, we have worked for 5 months now to just get the money back because we used Galaxy Digital first. Then they lost a bank account, so the money was blocked. Sent back to the trust. Then they gave us a new address to send the money to. It took us 1 month because the governance process are what they are to put 1 or 2 months, 2 months, I think, to change the address. The trustee sent the money and the bank account was already closed. So you're just wasting time of everyone and not getting any result. It's a very arcane and complex topic. Nothing to worry about really, because in TradFi it's difficult to lose money, not like on Ethereum, but there are a lot of complexities. And a lot of people, and having 5 people to work together when they are on different time zones and so on, it's quite complex. So obviously, if we can delegate that to a token that everyone can see on Ethereum, the blockchain, that the token can be redeemed for USDC most of the days. The price is this price most of the day. It should be, let's say, for instance, a backed IB01. Well, you know the price of backed IB01 because it should be the price of IB01. It's 1-to-1. So you can see on BlackRock website, what are all the positions every day, and what is the net asset value, and so on. So that's a lot of transparency that we can add in this way. So that's why we try to move in this direction. Then obviously it's getting something done in a big organization like MakerDAO is complex because you need governance processes, you need legal analysis, you need to have political support. And that, I mean, I'm not sure in community you see it, but that's super important to show when you want something to happen, because that's the first motivation for the people to do it, to fight the bureaucracy and get things done. And second, to just have a trend. And again, let's come back to the narrative situation. Everything is a narrative. So if you want something to be done, you create the narrative to get there. So so that's, I think having things on chain will provide a lot of clarity. And that's why the situation we have today, I mean, and that's completely up to you. If you think we should still have off-chain structures in 5 years and having discussion about where is the money and is it really in the spreadsheet or is it just a lie? Well, we can keep it this way. Or we can move to third-party providers and they will have attestation and they will work all day long to get audits and so on. So I think it's a good direction, but obviously that's up to MakerDAO to decide.
Okay, thank you very much, Seb, for coming again to talk. I don't know if you want to make any final comment.
No, maybe I wanted your feedback on what do you think about the situation and the explanation I gave to you, if they are satisfactory or if you are still thinking that some lack of transparency. And something we didn't discuss, but I think if you want low-level information or high-level information or simple stuff, I mean, you need to have a translator. I think there was GovCom, governance communication, back in the days. It was the job of this entity to make the link between the core units and the governance. And maybe you should fix the situation by having GovCom that takes the expert work, simplify it, show what is really important, and alert community on what matters.
Okay, that's an interesting proposal. And regarding my feedback, thank you very much for your explanations. I think I understand a bit more what's your job or what's your tasks in the DAO. I still believe that we need more information. I understand that maybe that's not your job. It's a thing to the DAO to solve. We will think about how to make a proposal in order to get this information to the stakeholders. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Okay.
I don't know if someone in the audience has any questions that they want to address. I haven't looked at the chat if there was some question.
We can give a minute to the chat if there's any question. Well, I think no one's typing, so thank you very much, Seb, and that's all for today for the AVC meeting. Thank you very much to everyone for coming. And as Chris said at the beginning of the meeting, we are not going to celebrate the following 2 weeks. We're not going to celebrate any subcommittee meeting. We are going to move to the last one of the quarter to discuss the aligned proposal document. Thank you very much to everyone, and see you in the chat and the forum.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Pedro and Sebastian, for your time for the discuss. These kind of debates are beneficial. It helps us everyone to understand more about what's the topic of the discussion and your job in here, and your insights, more important. As Pedro mentioned, there won't be meetings for the following 2 weeks, so expect a meeting on September 28th at the same time. That will be all. Thank you so much.